Welcome to a masterclass in Indian governance. When we think of executive power, our eyes instantly turn to the president or the prime minister. But resting structurally within our governance framework is a vital balancing mechanism, the office of the Vice President of India. Anchored firmly within Part 5 of the Indian Constitution, specifically across Articles 63 to 71, this blueprint details the second highest office in the land. Let's unlock the engineering behind the statecraft. The Vice President operates under a fascinating dual mandate, behaving like a political chameleon. Under Pillar 1, the legislative anchor, Article 64 establishes the Vice President as the Ex-Officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of Parliament. Here, they preserve legislative order and champion our federal structure. But look at Pillar 2, the executive safeguard. Under Article 65, if the presidency falls vacant due to resignation, removal, death, or illness, the Vice President immediately transforms into the acting president to ensure uninterrupted executive authority. Note the crucial safeguard at the bottom: the moment the padlock clicks and the Vice President acts as the president, they must temporarily cease all duties as the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Think of Articles 63 through 71 as a unified system dashboard. Let's break down the macro layout. First, at the core, we have establishment. Article 63 creates the office, Article 64 links it to the Rajya Sabha, and Article 65 unlocks the power to act as president. Next are the mechanics of the process. Article 66 dictates the complex election process, Article 67 manages the 5-year tenure and removal, while Article 69 commands the solemn oath of office. Finally, we have the contingencies, our structural safeguards. Article 68 manages the election clock for vacancies, Article 70 hands Parliament the key to handle unforeseen crises, and Article 71 gives the Supreme Court exclusive power over electoral disputes. Let's dive deeper into how these mechanics work. Who can step up to this high office? Article 66 creates a rigorous filter. On the candidate profile card, the core qualifications are clear. The candidate must be a citizen of India, must have completed 35 years of age, must hold no office of profit under government authorities, and must possess the unique legislative fitness, meaning they are fully qualified to be elected as a member of the Rajya Sabha. But that's just the profile. To pass the elite entry barrier vault on the right, frivolous candidates are weeded out. A candidate must secure 20 proposers and 20 seconders directly from the Electoral College, and lay down a 15,000 rupees security deposit with either the Reserve Bank of India or the Election Commission. When it's time to vote, how is the Vice President chosen? Through an indirect election by a specialized Electoral College. This consists of all members of Parliament, both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Pay close attention to this vital constitutional distinction. Unlike presidential elections where nominated MPs are excluded and state MLAs are included, the vice presidential election flips the script. Here, both elected and nominated MPs vote, while state MLAs have zero participation. The voting method uses proportional representation by means of a single transferable vote via a strictly anonymous secret ballot. To win, a candidate must clear a threshold of 50% plus one of the valid cast votes. Time and allegiance are codified across Articles 67 and 69. On our timeline ruler, a vice president's standard term lasts exactly 5 years from the day they step into office. Yet, the system abhors a vacuum. The law dictates that a vice president continues to hold office beyond their 5-year expiration until their newly elected successor officially assumes the role. On the right, look at the sacred oath. Administered directly by the President of India, or a person designated by them, the Vice President takes a solemn pledge to bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India, and to faithfully discharge the duties of their office. What happens if a Vice President needs to be removed? The Constitution outlines a precise 3-step mechanism under Article 67. Step 1 is initiation. A mandatory 14-day advance written notice must be given, and the resolution can only originate in the Rajya Sabha. Step 2 is the heavy lift. The Rajya Sabha must pass the resolution by an effective majority, meaning a majority of all the actual, existing members of the House at that time. Step 3 is concurrence. The Lok Sabha must simply agree to it by a simple majority of members present and voting. Notice our constitutional call-out at the bottom. Surprise, the Indian Constitution lists absolutely no specific grounds or crimes required for removal. However, during these proceedings, the vice president is barred from presiding over the House, though they can stand present and participate without voting rights. Time is a critical variable when handling a vacancy under Article 68. The Constitution splits this into two absolute timelines. Look at Part A, expiry of term. When a term is running out naturally, the system demands that the next election must be completed before the current 5-year clock runs out. But look at Part B, sudden vacancy triggered by unexpected death, resignation, or removal. Here, the rule states the election must happen as soon as possible. Check our glowing diagnostic note. Unlike the President's office, which enforces a strict, unyielding 6-month maximum time limit to find a successor, the Constitution leaves the vice presidential timeline open-ended under the phrase, as soon as possible. What happens if a crisis breaks the chain of power? Article 70 allows Parliament to make legal provisions for completely unforeseen executive crises. This constitutional permission slip gave rise to a key piece of legislation, the Discharge of President's Functions Act, 1969. It establishes a crystal-clear fail-safe chain. If the president falls, the vice president takes over. But what if both offices are suddenly vacant at the same time? The mantle descends directly to the Chief Justice of India. And if the Chief Justice is unavailable, it lands on the shoulders of the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court of India. A rock-solid structural redundancy. Elections can get messy, but Article 71 makes sure there is only one ultimate referee. If any doubts or disputes arise surrounding the election of a vice president, the Supreme Court of India holds absolute, exclusive jurisdiction. No other lower court or tribunal can interfere, and their final verdict is absolute. But pay close attention to the protection of acts safeguard at the bottom. If the Supreme Court ultimately rules an election unconstitutional and declares it void, all official decisions and acts executed by that vice president before the court's ruling remain perfectly valid and legal. This protects the country from sudden legal chaos. To truly appreciate our system, let's step onto the global stage and compare the Indian model to its primary inspiration, the United States. On paper, their primary roles look identical. The Indian vice president leads the Rajya Sabha, while the American vice president leads the US Senate. But look at what happens during a presidential vacancy. It's a complete structural departure. In America, if the president dies or resigns, the vice president permanently assumes the presidency for the remainder of that 4-year term. In stark contrast, the Indian vice president serves purely as a temporary stopgap executive, holding the fort only until a brand new presidential election can be successfully organized. Let's look at history. The office has built a fascinating legacy divided into two notable groups. First, meet the ascendants, the vice presidents who successfully transitioned to become the President of India. This prestigious list includes Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, Dr. Zakir Hussain, V. Giri, R. Venkatraman, Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma, and K. R. Narayanan. Below them stand the unopposed leaders whose political stature was so universally respected that they won their elections completely uncontested. Dr. Radhakrishnan achieved this twice, in 1952 and 1957, followed later by Justice M. Hidayatullah in 1979, and Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma in 1987. Beyond standard successions, history features two profound milestones of emergency execution. Milestone 1 brings us to B.D. Jetty, who seamlessly stepped in as acting President of India in 1977 following the tragic and sudden demise of President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, ensuring stability during a critical period. Then, look at the extraordinary case of Justice Muhammad Hidayatullah. In 1969, as the sitting Chief Justice of India, he activated the ultimate level of the contingency chain to serve as acting President when both top offices fell vacant. In a brilliant historical twist, he returned years later in 1979 to be elected as the Vice President of India itself, uncontested. Bringing our constitutional journey into the present day, let's look at the current office. The current occupant is Shri Jagdeepdhankhar, serving as the 14th Vice President of India. He secured his position during the 16th vice presidential election held in 2022. The bar chart illustrates the decisive electoral numbers from that election cycle. Out of the total valid votes cast by the members of parliament, Jagdeepdhankhar secured a winning majority of 528 votes, while the united opposition candidate, Margaret Alva, finished as the runner-up with 182 votes. To summarize our journey, the office of the Vice President stands as a masterclass in constitutional engineering. It serves as a legislative anchor, ensuring the upper house of our federal democracy functions smoothly day in and day out. It acts as an executive safeguard, standing by as an instant fail-safe to prevent any vacuum of power at the apex of the republic. It is a uniquely Indian adaptation, inspired by global designs, but re-engineered to stabilize a vibrant parliamentary democracy. Thank you for watching. Keep exploring, and stay curious about the frameworks that shape our nation. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment if you enjoyed this quick revision.